Today was my final shift at the local cocktail bar I've been working at. And it's not that I was fired or anything. I left on my own terms due to finding work elsewhere. But as you know from the video title, I hated just about everything about this place. And I'm not trying to downgrade hospitality work at all. I just think I somehow happened to pick the worst bar to work at in my city. And now, it takes a lot for me to hate a job. As long as I'm getting paid, I'm usually happy to do what's needed of me. But let's start from the beginning. I'm currently a graduate in the UK, and as I'm sure most of you know, being a graduate in this day and age is just about as useful as a chocolate teapot. So naturally, after going through months and months of getting rejected from jobs, I was slowly running out of money. And my mum suggested working at one of the pubs or bars that are local to us. And with Christmas around the corner, most of these venues will be hiring. So this is what I did. And eventually a cocktail bar near me, which I'm not going to lie, somehow I had no idea even existed, took me in. And now, I'm a young lad. So going into working at a job whereby you're serving drinks at a venue which facilitates nightlife, I immediately thought, goody. I'll be working with people my age. There'll probably be a fit girl I'll be working with as well. Or if not, I'll be serving drinks to some instead. I couldn't wait to start. I had a couple of mates who were working in or had been working in similar venues, and they said, yeah, it's good fun and there's usually someone of similar age working on the bar. And if not, you'll probably be serving drinks to some people our age. And of course, this wasn't the only thing I'd be looking forward to. I'd be doing something new. Prior to this job, I'd never actually worked in anything customer service related, apart from the odd time I'd poured pints at a racecourse for a day or something. I'd always leaned towards doing delivery jobs and whatnot, so I was happy to be trying something different for once. And on top of this, I'd meet many new people, whether this be the fit barmaid I'd be serving drinks with, or someone else my age who I'd get on with. All in all, I'd be meeting and interacting with so many new people while trying something new. So it was time for my first shift, and my exact role wasn't bartender exactly. I'd be helping out on the bar, but also helping out in the kitchen. Additionally, I was told I'd only be working on Sundays, but would eventually be eased into doing more shifts per week. Because it was a local business with a small amount of staff, I was basically expected to fill in the holes. But this was previously explained to me, so I wasn't really too bothered. And when I say they had a very small amount of staff, it literally consisted of the owner and his wife, who both lived upstairs, and a bar manager. We'll call him Joe. And from the get-go, it seemed like a cool dynamic. The owner and his wife seemed nice from the first impressions, and the bar manager just seemed like a standard guy. Oh yeah, and by the way, the owner was about 5 years older than me. I'm assuming his wife was of similar age, and the bar manager Joe was over 10 years older than me. So already a few of my expectations had been flaunted. I mean, the owner wasn't too much older than me, and of course the only woman working there was the owner's wife. But I wouldn't really see much of these two compared to Joe, who was over a decade older than me. But I wasn't going to let this affect my first day. It would be stupid to judge the job off of how old the people I'm working with were. So my first shift goes pretty much how I expected. I helped out in the kitchen, cleaning pots, helping serve food, whilst also helping out on the bar if needed. And then comes the end of the shift. The owner starts pouring pints out for us, and we get some drinks down us. Me personally, I wasn't too keen on drinking that night, because A, it was a Sunday night and I wanted to go home, and B, I wasn't expecting to be drinking on Sunday night. But it was my first shift, and I couldn't really just leave. This basically felt like some sort of initiation ritual for me. It's like they were testing to see if I was cool or not. So I complied and drank a bit, and then we drank a bit more, and then a bit more. And by the end of it all, I was extremely drunk. Like more drunk than I normally would be if me and my mates went to the pub. Joe seemed like a glass half empty type of guy. Every time my drink was anything but full, it would immediately get topped up. And at this point in the night, we were drinking some very heavy spirits. But I mean, what the fuck? It was a bit of a laugh, and I was also getting to know the people I'd be working with in my new job. And it's here I'd say I started to have a change of feelings towards this job. Yes, it literally took me one whole shift for me to start feeling different towards this job. And it mainly all stemmed from Joe. Let me get into Joe. Pause. This guy was like 37 or something, and had been working in bars and clubs his whole life. But immediately I thought he was gay, which of course I don't have any issues with. But it seemed like my man was just always trying to touch me. Not like rubbing my thighs or anything, but just always putting his hands on my shoulders, or grabbing my arm and asking, "Are you alright?" Well, maybe not in such a creepy voice, but you get it. And you might be thinking like, bro, you're clearly just insecure about your sexuality. But let me tell you some of the shit he was saying on my first shift. Like, for example, he'd go on about tearing me a new arsehole if I ever fucked up on the bar. And now keep in mind I'd known this guy for a matter of hours. Plus it didn't help he wasn't exactly the most well-groomed guy. He had a long wiry beard, wore the same clothes every shift, and just had an overall odour of BO follow him around. And all of this ped of the overly touchy-feely stuff I just couldn't get out of my head he was trying to make a constant pass on me. And also, keep in mind, we were really drunk when he dropped the whole tear me a new arsehole line. And he was the one constantly topping up my drink. I'm not saying drunk actions are sober thoughts. I just couldn't get out of my head. Like, overall, I just felt really uncomfortable around him when he was this drunk. And he was also the one getting me drunk simultaneously. And there was something else I remember from this night. I was talking about how I was previously looking for a job related to my degree and explained how it's tough to find such a job because of the UK job market, etc, etc. Yeah, it sounds like I was belittling the owner and Joe's job, which I wasn't trying to do. I was just purely trying to explain my situation. But then Joe said something like, "Oh mate, working in a bar is great. You can drink all the time, get paid, and still claim benefits. Benefits being universal credit if you're American." But once he said this, I just clocked that this guy has had zero life aspirations his whole life, and that he just wasn't the type of guy I want to be spending time with. And I do need to add in, Joe wasn't actually gay in the end. He actually had a missus, so apologies, Joe, on my behalf, and that's an L gaydar moment for me. I mean, the guy didn't mean any harm in the end, and all in all, he was a nice guy, I guess, but we were just very different people with very different outlooks on life. But you know what I mean? Like, when you just disagree on people's lifestyle and outlook on life, for me personally, I just find it hard to get on with them. I wouldn't be arguing or starting beef with him. I just think we had very little to talk about, apart from if it was talking about our favourite pint or something. So anyway, back to me being drunk after my first shift. At this point, I was extremely drunk and decided to call it a night. The owner paid me cash in hand and I walked home. And upon waking up the next morning, I counted my pay and noticed I was ever so slightly underpaid. It was only £10 or something, but you know what I mean? It's the whole principle. Like, I stayed there an extra couple of hours as well to drink when I didn't really want to, so I felt pretty cheated by the whole situation. But I also just assumed it was a mistake, so I didn't think much of it. And before I knew it, the following Sunday had rolled round, and they were pretty rammed on Sundays with Sunday roast bookings. They basically only serve food on Sundays, with the odd person wanting a pint with the meal. And I consider myself a fairly competent cook. I like to cook for the family and help out with making roast dinners, so I could consider myself somewhat of a roast dinner connoisseur when it comes to making and tasting roast dinners. But what I saw in this kitchen would make a famished peasant puke, and I wasn't expecting much from the bar food-wise, but this was literally beyond me. So I mean, we'll get the standard stuff out of the way. Everything was brought in and already prepped and frozen. Pretty standard pub grub. But let me get onto the meat, the main attraction of any roast dinner. This meat was just raw, like it came out red and uncooked in the middle, and the way it was prepped was abysmal. Of course, the owner would roast the joint of meat, then he'd serve it as customers ordered the meals. That's all pretty standard. But anything left of the joint would be frozen for the next Sunday. And once the next Sunday came around, he'd cut off any of the meat that needed serving, put it in some hot water to defrost, and then dish it up. This cycle would genuinely go on for weeks until the meat was finished. And keep in mind, this bar wasn't particularly booked up on Sundays. Like, it was busy, but it still took a month and a bit to go through this joint of meat. Take a wild guess as to what they were charging for this reheated slop. £18. 18 great British pounds. I reckon it had a face value of about £2, and even then I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot barge pole. And I just feel bad serving the slosh to people as they were paying such a premium price for such a shitty plate of food. And the customers knew it was poor. I remember there was a shift where genuinely 80% of the people who received the roast dinner asked for it to be sent back to be reheated or just requested a refund. And I was the one serving all the food, so essentially I was the face of this shitty roast dinner. Like, just walking around the bar collecting glasses and being pulled aside to be told how poor the food was, and having to take like 4 plate loads of food back to the kitchen became the new norm. And as a roast dinner enthusiast, I wish I had the passion to help this kitchen out. Like, even me making the roast potatoes would have improved the overall dish tenfold, but I wasn't being paid enough to want to do extra work. Oh yeah, and you know I was underpaid on my first shift. It happened again. So naturally, I just called the owner out, and he paid me the right amount, so I guess that was sorted, but it still left something bad in the air regarding my attitude to the job and the owner. And I'm sure many of you guys were wondering, why haven't you quit at this point? And this bar was extremely lucky I was in between a rock and a hard place. Like, I think at this point in my life, I'd have entered Squid Game to make ends meet. Like, I was struggling to find a job which aligned with my degree, so for the time being, I was stuck there. Now, another issue I had with this place, and this one sounds stupid, but I'd end up drinking a lot. Not as intense as the first night of the first shift, but more than I would have liked. And you may be wondering, why would you keep on drinking with people you're not at all keen on? Or what else were you expecting? You're literally working at a bar. And yeah, I sort of expected there'd be more drinking involved with this job compared to my previous delivery jobs. But I'd end up just having a pint with the regulars after shift, or having a pint on shift to help pass the time whilst I was doing a bullshit job they had me doing. But this just wasn't my ideal. Some people might hear this and think that sounds phenomenal, but this isn't my cup of tea really. I've always been into fitness and health, and living in Britain, I do enjoy having a pint here and there. But at this point, I was just having pints to help pass the time, when there was really no need to be doing so. The only purpose in these pints was to take my mind off how much I hated this job. But finally, I'd been called up to work on the Saturday night. It felt like making the team sheet for a football fixture back in year 6, and I was actually excited to work it. I was intrigued to see what the bar looked and felt like when it was in full swing, and we were actually serving drinks, not roast dinners. On top of this, I finally thought, shit, I might meet some people my age. As the standard demographic booking roast dinners tends to be families or couples. They also had a DJ in that night, and this truly felt like the stars were aligning with this job. This felt like the ultimate delayed gratification. I'd grinded out these Sunday shifts, I hated working, and now I could finally get a taste of the Saturday shift. Jesus Christ, that sounds pathetic, but as I'm sure you could expect, the Saturday shift didn't live up to my expectations. Yes, it was rammed, but it was just full of single, middle-aged to older-aged men mingling with other single, middle-aged to older-aged women. I'd say I was the youngest there by about 20 years. And I guess it was somewhat fun doing the bar, and being constantly busy made the night go by quickly. But here's what really pissed me off. The pub next door to us, like literally the very next building, they also had the DJ on. And on my break, I had to trundle over to see what was going on and poke my head through. And genuinely, everyone in there was my age. Like, this was just rubbing salt into the wound. I'd had so many high expectations and hopes for this shift, just to be slapped in the face to find out I've chosen the wrong bar to work at by one building. And honestly, I wish I could actually outline some positives from working at this place. I'd say the only highlight I do have was the Saturday shift. It was just different and less demoralising than the Sunday one. But apart from that, I genuinely don't have anything good to say about this place. And just a word of warning to anyone who may be looking for bar work. Don't work for a small business with a small staff crew. I understand the whole support your local business idea, and this couldn't resonate more with me as my mum herself owns a small local business. But working for a small business, which is specifically a bar, the owners will work you to the fucking ground. And I know I was working fuck all per week, but on those shifts I was just being made to do all the bullshit tasks that weren't done throughout the whole week. Like, it got to a point where I hadn't actually served a drink to anyone in 3 weeks. I'd say the tipping point with me in this job was when I was made to clean the toilets because somehow 2 out of the 3 toilets were fully blocked. I did try to unblock them, but after almost throwing up, I just stopped and realised I wasn't being paid enough. As I'm sure you could tell, my hatred from this job stemmed from every aspect of it. It wasn't just a co-worker I didn't see eye to eye with, it was everything. It didn't deliver on my expectations. I know I sound like a sport brat. I also didn't get on with the owner too well, and Joe and I just didn't really have much in common. And Joe was the person I spent most time with on shifts. The whole being underpaid thing on some shifts left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was made to do some of the most bullshit jobs just to keep me busy. Additionally, I found the work demoralising for the previous reasons explained. But the fact I went from applying to corporate jobs to walking into the bar and being made to clean a sink full of dirty dishes, it was just like the ultimate low blow. And the list genuinely goes on and on. And I'm not sure if you guys listening may even think the job sounded that bad because I was only working limited shifts per week, but mentally this job was so draining. I'd be dreading going in all week, and when I was there, I just hated every second of it. And once again, I'm not trying to belittle hospitality jobs. As said previously, I think I somehow picked the worst place to possibly work at in the UK. Like, I'm sure 99% of other pubs or bars would be chill as fuck to work at. And now, this brings us to the present time. Since working this jobs, I've been looking for other career-focused jobs, but to no avail. So in the end, I'm going back to delivery driving for a bit, specifically Amazon. I've done Amazon delivery before, and at the time, I swore by it being the worst job I've ever worked. But after doing a few months at this place, I'm genuinely so excited to start again. And I hope that alone paints an accurate picture as to how hellish this job was. That's it from me now, and I'll see you guys soon.